Welcome to the Depth Dive. Today we're digging into a really foundational text, positioning, The Battle for Your Mind by Ries and Jack Trout.
Yeah, it's a classic.
It really is, and we're going to explore how you can sort of get noticed, gain that competitive edge, whether it's for a product, a service, your company, even for yourself.
And it all comes down to shaping how you're perceived, right?
Exactly.
What I find fascinating right away is that core idea. Positioning, it isn't really about the thing itself, the product features or your skills.
Hmm.
It's about the mental real estate you occupy in someone else's head. The goal isn't always creating something brand new, but, you know, cleverly working with perceptions that are already there.
Absolutely. And that's so relevant today. I mean, if you feel like your message is just getting ground out, well, you're probably right.
Totally.
Ries and Trout called it the overcommunicated society, and the numbers back it up. Think about it. In America, it's something like $376 worth of ads per person per year. Globally, it's like under $17. That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Then add, 30,000 new books every year, a Sunday New York Times weighing over 4 pounds with 500,000 words. It's just a lot.
It's information overload, basically. And when you connect that flood of messages to how our brains actually work, rather don't work when overloaded,
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense why just being louder or, more creative doesn't always cut it anymore.
Right. Traditional approaches just fall flat sometimes.
So this deep dive, we're going to unpack how positioning gives you a more strategic way, maybe a smarter way, to get through that mental static.
And it's not just theory, is it? The book points out how tons of successful people and companies use this stuff, consciously or not.
Oh yeah, politicians crafting an image, huge companies like P&G, Johnson & Johnson, they get it.
So yeah, let's dive in and figure out how you can win that battle for the mind.
Okay, first up, this concept of the assault on the mind. Like the book says, there's a traffic jam on the turnpikes of the mind,
That's a great phrase.
isn't it? The main point is just throwing more messages out there doesn't mean more impact. Often it's actually the opposite. Less gets through.
Yeah, think about George H.W. Bush. Long career in public service, right? But most people probably only remember a few things about him.
Mm-hmm.
Then you contrast that with maybe someone like Ted Kennedy, where arguably too much exposure maybe contributed to certain perceptions that kind of stuck with him.
Right. And it applies to products, too. Remember all the Chevrolet models? Camaro, Cavalier, Celebrity, Chevette, Citation, Corvette, Monte Carlo.
That's a list.
It is.
Yeah.
But how many really, pop into your head now? Maybe Corvette. Maybe Camaro.
Yeah, a couple.
Exactly. It shows that even with tons of options, only a few names really stick. Our minds are selective.
And that selectivity comes down to, well, limited capacity. The authors use that great analogy. The mind is like a 1-quart container.
Yeah. You can only pour so much in before it overflows.
And then there's a product explosion complicating things even more. Your average supermarket has, 12,000 items?
Or more. Those hypermarkets, like Biggs they mentioned, had 60,000.
It's nuts. It's a fight for mental shelf space, not just the physical kind.
Okay, so here's where it gets really crucial. If you're not the first one to get an idea into the mind, you're fighting uphill. Big time.
Oh, yeah. Think about those trivia questions like, who was second?
Right. Second best-selling book after the Bible.
No idea.
Second biggest cargo port after New York.
Probably wouldn't guess it.
Second person to fly solo across the North Atlantic.
Definitely drawing a blank.
See? Being second often means being, well, invisible in the mind. The advantage almost always goes to the first one in.
So that leads us nicely into the positioning era, right? The idea that the game has changed.
Exactly. The book argues we've shifted. It used to be maybe more about pure creativity and ads. Now it's about smart positioning, strategy.
And a key part of that is understanding how our minds actually process new stuff. We tend to reject things that don't fit with what we already believe.
Yeah, that example with the abstract drawings is perfect. Label one Schwartz and an identical one Picasso, and people see completely different things
Because of the name.
because of the name and the expectations it triggers. It's like how people on opposite sides of the political spectrum can read the same article and walk away totally reinforced in their own views.
Right. You see what you expect to see. That's the phrase they use.
Precisely. And expectations don't just affect sight, they affect taste too. That Gallo wine in a fancy burgundy bottle store.
Yeah.
People literally taste what they expect to taste. And it works the other way too. Remember Galvinger's Diet beer? Their ads basically hinted it wouldn't taste great.
And surprise, surprise, it didn't catch on. Negative expectations.
Mm-hmm. Which brings us to another trap, the FWMTS trap.
Right. Forgot what made them successful.
Exactly. Avis is the classic case study here. We're number two. We try harder. Brilliant positioning.
It really was. It owned being second, turned it into a positive, like, we have to work harder for you.
Totally. But then they dropped it, aiming to just be number one. And they lost that unique, powerful spot they'd carved out against Hertz.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Does that constant pressure to seem like number one or to innovate constantly sometimes make companies ditch what actually worked?
That's a really good question. I think there's definitely a tension there.
Mhm.
Sometimes just reinforcing your core strength is way more powerful than chasing the next shiny thing.
And the book also really hits hard on this idea that you can't get there from here if your starting position is just fundamentally wrong.
Yeah, like RCA trying to take on IBM head-to-head in computers.
Futile, really.
Pretty much.
Hmm.
IBM already owned that space in the business mind. RCA, no matter how much they spent, was trying to barge into a room where the door was already locked, essentially.
Timing is everything. Getting there first to establish leadership, it's just huge.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of being first.
Yeah.
What about when you are the leader? Let's talk positioning of a leader.
Right. As we said, being first gives you that huge, often long-lasting market share advantage. So leaders need to focus on reinforcing that position constantly.
Keep reminding people why you're number one.
Exactly. And crucially, they need to cover all bets. That means investing in new tech, even if it looks like it might compete with their current stuff.
Like the GM example with the Wankel engine.
Yeah. They invested early. Even though it didn't take over, it was a hedge. Contrast that with, say, Kodak or 3M missing the boat on plain paper copiers.
Oof, yeah. Xerox jumped right in and owned it.
Big miss for them. And leaders often use that multi-brand strategy effectively too, right?
Oh, definitely. Think Procter & Gamble. Tide, Cascade, Ivory. Each one is a distinct brand with its own clear position.
Mm-hmm. They don't just slap P&G on everything.
No, and they don't just do Tide Plus or Tide Ultra
Mm-hmm.
endlessly, which can actually dilute the main brand.
Mm.
Each name stands for something specific.
Which is smart. Okay, so that's leaders. But what if you're not the leader? Which is, let's face it, most companies. What about the positioning of a follower?
Right. Followers need to find a creno, a hole, a gap in the market that the leader isn't filling.
Finding that unoccupied spot in the prospect's mind.
Exactly. And this isn't just guesswork. It means really digging in, doing the research to see what needs aren't being met or which niches the big guys are ignoring.
And there are different ways to carve out that niche, right? The book gives a bunch of examples.
Yeah, lots of angles. You can go by size, like
Yeah.
Volkswagen's famous Think Small campaign directly hitting the big American cars.
Classic. Or you can go the other way, position on high price. Häagen-Dazs basically invented the premium ice cream category doing that.
Mm-hmm. Or the opposite, Load-Feis. Think Walmart, Southwest Airlines. They build empires on that.
Then there are demographic angles, like focusing on sex, Marlboro becoming the masculine cigarette, or Revlon using a man's name Charlie for a women's perfume.
Interesting. We're targeting by age, Geritol for older people, AIM toothpaste for kids.
Even time of day can work. NyQuil totally owns the nighttime cold remedy slot.
It really does. Or focusing on distribution. Legs was revolutionary, putting pantyhose in supermarkets, right where shoppers already were.
Yeah, that was clever. But the big warning here is the everybody trap.
Oh yeah, definitely. Trying to be everything to everyone.
Means you end up being nothing special to anyone.
The Edsel, perfect example. Just no clear identity, tried to tick too many boxes, and it just flopped.
Okay, so find a niche. But what if all the obvious niches seem taken? Then what?
Ah, well, that's when you might need to get a bit more aggressive. That leads us to repositioning the competition.
Right, so if you can't find an empty slot, you have to kind of make one by changing how people see the existing players.
Exactly. To get your new idea in, sometimes you got to push an old one out of the way, mentally speaking.
Tylenol is the go-to example here, isn't it? They didn't just say, we're a great pain reliever.
No, they were smarter. They focused on repositioning aspirin. They talked about aspirin side effects, the stomach issues.
Fortunately, there is Tylenol.
Bingo. That framed Tylenol as the gentle alternative. It created a new position by changing how people thought about the leader, aspirin.
Very clever. And Stolichnaya vodka did something similar.
Yeah, by hammering home its genuine Russian origin. That implicitly repositioned American vodkas, which, let's be honest, kind of benefited from a vague Russian association anyway. Stolich claimed the authentic spot.
So it's not just saying we're better, that's just comparative ads.
Right. The book makes that distinction clear. Repositioning is about shifting the perception of the competitor in the consumer's mind. It's more subtle, often more effective.
It focuses on their perceived weakness, essentially. Which brings up maybe some ethical thoughts, but from a strategic view.
It's about finding leverage in the mental landscape. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Let's talk about something seemingly simple but incredibly powerful. The power of the name.
Ah, yes. The name. The book calls it the hook, right? The thing that hangs your brand on that mental ladder inside the prospect's mind.
And they argue it's maybe the single most important marketing decision you make. Especially now, with all the noise.
Makes sense. Getting the name right is crucial. Do you go with a coined name, like Xerox, often good for new categories, or use existing words?
And they definitely warn against the no-name trap. Using initials that don't mean anything, like Menon E or Breck 1. Just weak.
It's fascinating how deep the psychology of names goes, though. Even personal names. That study with teachers grading essays.
Yeah, same essay but labeled David or Michael versus Hubert or Elmer, and the grades were different.
Wild. Shows those subconscious biases we have based purely on a name.
And the Edsel name itself just didn't sound right, contributed to the car's failure.
Yeah.
People expect different things from a Cyril than a John, apparently.
Yeah. And think about company names, too. A regional name like Eastern Airlines. Always fighting that perception, even when they flew nationally.
That no-name trap hits companies using initials, too. IBM is famous because it succeeded, not the other way around. Just picking initials doesn't guarantee anything.
And don't fall for the free ride trap either. Thinking a new product will automatically succeed just because it shares a name with a famous one.
Like Lifesavers gum, didn't quite work out like the candy.
Nope. Which leads to that really important distinction: when to use a house name versus a brand new name.
Right. House name makes sense maybe when you want your company's reputation to cover similar products. But for something truly new,
You need a new name to build its own distinct position. P&G does this constantly with new brands.
contrast that with Xerox trying to use the Xerox name for computers.
Yeah.
Just didn't translate well from copiers.
It's that teeter-totter principle they talk about. One name can't really stand for two very different things effectively in our minds.
Which brings us perfectly to the next big pitfall, the line extension trap.
Ah, yes. Taking a name that works for one thing and just slapping it onto something new?
On the surface, it seems so logical, right? Saves money on ads, stores already know the name, consumers recognize it.
Seems like a no-brainer, but
But when you look at it from the outside in, from the consumer's mind, it often fails. Miserable.
because it blurs the original brand's focus, right? It weakens that core position.
Exactly. Think Dial soap versus Dial deodorant, Bayer aspirin versus Bayer non-aspirin. What does Bayer mean anymore if it's aspirin and not aspirin? It gets fuzzy.
That JCPenney battery versus Die Hard battery example is so clear, too.
Yeah, Die Hard just screams long-lasting. It's the perfect name hook for that attribute. JCPenney battery? Meh.
Doesn't have the same punch at all. And we saw brands like Protein 21 shampoo arguably dilute themselves with too many extensions.
Or Scott paper, using Scott for everything from tissues to towels. Does it weaken the foundation? The book suggests maybe yes.
And failures like Lifesavers gum again, Pall Mall menthol. They just couldn't leverage the original name effectively.
Even missed opportunities like Maxim coffee, first freeze-dried coffee, huge innovation. But calling it Maxim, so close to Maxwell House.
It never got its own strong, clear position as the innovator. It just felt like another Maxwell House product.
Right. Now contrast that with what they call reverse line extension or broadening the base.
Where you take the same product but find new uses for it, like Johnson's baby shampoo for adults.
Or Arm & Hammer baking soda for
Right.
deodorizing fridges, drains, whatever. Same product, new application, same name.
Though even that has risks, right? You can broaden too much and fall into that everybody trap again. Arm & Hammer for everything might lose focus.
It's a balance. But the core argument is that even huge, successful companies like Kraft or Chevrolet suffer from too much line extension. They become diffuse.
Yeah, what is a Chevrolet anymore? A truck, electric car, a sports car. It's less clear than it used to be.
That's the bartender test or the list test they mentioned. If you ask for the brand and they say which one, or if you struggle to list what the brand is, that's a sign of weakness.
And even line extensions that seem okay short-term, like adding light or plus.
Can potentially chip away at the original brand's strength long-term. Even luxury brands going down market, like the Cadillac Cimarron.
Oof, yeah. That really conflicted with Cadillac's core luxury position. Didn't work well.
Okay, so we've covered products and brands. What about applying these ideas more broadly? Let's talk positioning your business and yourself.
Right. The book gives those 6 key questions to kickstart any positioning program. First, what position do you actually own now? Be honest.
Second, what position do you want to own? Where do you want to be in people's minds?
Third, who do you have to beat? Who must you outgun or reposition?
Fourth, and this is a big one, do you have enough money, enough resources to actually make it happen?
Yeah, positioning isn't cheap. Fifth, can you stick it out? Is this a long-term commitment?
Because it has to be. And sixth, does your advertising, does your communication actually match the position you're trying to claim? Is it consistent?
Good checklist. And for individuals in today's job market, they really stress defining yourself as a specialist.
Yeah, being a generalist is tougher now. Find your niche. And again, don't try to take on the leader head on. It rarely works.
Go around, under, over, reposition them if you have to. Like Nuprin and Advil struggling against Tylenol despite huge ad spends. Tylenol just owned that gentle, non-aspirin space.
Breaking through that advertising noise level takes serious, sustained cash. It's not a weekend project.
No way. And you gotta have patience. Stick with what works. Marlboro, Crest. They didn't constantly change their core position.
And sometimes you need that outsider perspective, right? Like an ad agency, someone who's not emotionally invested in the same way.
Objectivity is key.
Yeah.
And their job isn't just creativity, it's creativity in service of the position.
Totally. It all comes back to understanding words, really. Words are just triggers for meanings already in people's minds. You need mental flexibility.
Yeah, understanding how others see things, not just how you want them to see things. That difference between sane people adapting to reality and unsane people trying to bend reality to their beliefs.
And the name again, Mustang versus Turtle for a car. Perception is everything.
But while perception is key, don't get fooled by the illusion of constant change either. Sometimes sticking to your core vision, like Maytag or Disney, is the path to long-term success.
Right. It takes courage to make a move, but also subtlety to find a position that's distinct but still has broad enough appeal. Avoid that Rolls-Royce thinking where you aim for a tiny, tiny niche.
And ultimately, the essence of positioning is sacrifice.
You have to give something up to own something unique. NyQuil gave up the daytime market to own the night.
Smaller targets you can actually own are better than huge markets where you're just one of the crowd.
And that first rule, worth repeating. Don't go head-to-head with a strong, established leader. Find another way.
So let's wrap this up. The big takeaway here is pretty clear, I think.
Yeah, in this crazy, over-communicated world we live in, success isn't just about being loud. It's about being clear.
It's about effectively positioning yourself, your product, your idea, whatever it is, inside the mind of your prospect. Clarity, consistency, and really understanding the perceptions that are already out there. Working with them, not just fighting them.
So hopefully this deep dive has given you a solid framework, a way to think strategically about how you can gain that mental edge, in whatever it is you're doing.
Absolutely. And maybe here's a final thought for you to chew on. Think about a product or a service you use or see all the time. What position does it really hold in your mind? Like, what's the first thing that comes up? And then, thinking about everything we've discussed, is that the best possible position for it?
Interesting question.
Yeah, and what sacrifices might they have needed to make, or maybe still need to make, to sharpen that position, to make it even clearer, even stronger?
That's a great exercise. Thinking about these positioning principles really can give you a new lens, not just for marketing, but for, personal branding, how you communicate every day, just navigating this noisy world we're all in.